On this episode of Team Building Saves the World.
This is like brand new, perfect timing that we're having this conversation. That part of the brain isn't storing recent events as memory, so they can't backtrack. So I think it's important to start early and find out what's happening there. Caregiving stress costs the U.S. businesses $35 billion annually. I mean, none of this is groundbreaking, earth-shattering stuff that we already know.
Hello, team. It's me, your old friend Rich Rinnensland, host of Team Building Saves the World. Today, we're going to be talking about a very important subject, Alzheimer's and dementia, and how best your corporate community can support caregivers in the workplace with the regional manager of Southeastern Massachusetts for Alzheimer's Association, Jennifer Hoadley. But first, I have to share some love with all of my supporters at Team Bonding. If your team is ready to experience teamwork through the power of play, then visit teambonding.com to learn more. Now, team, it's time to talk about how we can best assist the caregivers in your workplace while also taking care of your own brain health with Alzheimer's Association's own Jennifer Hoadley. Jennifer Hoadley, thank you so very much for coming on the show. We appreciate you being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
To begin with, just to introduce you to my team out there, you were a certified dementia practitioner and the regional manager for Southeastern Massachusetts at the Alzheimer's Association.
Correct.
That's a lot. Can you explain to us, as a getting to know you, how you got into this specific field? I mean, was this some sort of specified training you were going for, or was it something that just kind of fell into you?
Sure. Yeah. So back in college, I was studying therapeutic recreation.
Nice.
And when it came time to decide what I wanted to do for an internship, there were a lot of different avenues I could go. I chose to do my internship at a nursing home, and the memory care unit there, I felt very drawn to that. I really enjoyed working with the folks that had memory loss, some form of dementia. And then personally, both my grandfathers had dementia, so felt extra rewarding to be able to work with people that had dementia, knowing more from that. So that brought me to working in the assisted living world, running memory care units and doing activities and getting to know the folks there as well as their families. And then from there, I started working for the Alzheimer's Association.
And just so we can be sure that everybody on my team out there is coming from the same level, can you define for us Alzheimer's and dementia? And is there a difference between the two?
Yes, that's a great question. And it's a question that we get asked very often. So dementia is an umbrella term. Okay. And what it really means is a decline in cognitive functioning that's going to impact somebody's memory, their thinking, and their behavior. And that's just like a very general term, but people who have Alzheimer's, they will experience those symptoms of dementia, but that's the cause of it. There are lots of other reasons why somebody might experience those symptoms. So there's a vascular type dementia, there's Lewy body type dementia, frontal temporal type dementia. There's hundreds of different reasons why somebody might have that decline in cognition. Okay. But Alzheimer's is the most common. We do help people, though, at the Alzheimer's Association with varying types of dementia. It doesn't matter if it's Alzheimer's. It doesn't matter if somebody has an actual diagnosis or not, if they're just concerned about memory loss. Gotcha. So there's lots of help for everybody.
Okay, fantastic. And we want to get all that information toward the end. So don't worry. Just remind me if I forget, and I won't, but in case, that to get back to that. So if people do want to get a hold of them, they know where to go to. Mm-hmm. But I do want to actually clear up, if we can, because goodness knows there's got to be 100 misconceptions around what Alzheimer's is. Do I have it? Because I believe there's a huge pandemic of just people misdiagnosing themselves. Sure. I mean, to be fair, I'm in my 50s, and I have discovered I have what I call my mother's disease, which is forgetting names, the proper names of things. The minute I try to think of them, they're gone. But that's not Alzheimer's. So what other kind of misconceptions do people really have around dementia and Alzheimer's in particular?
Yeah, so we actually have kind of like a brochure and an education program that's all about what are the 10 warning signs. So things
Okay.
to be looking out for. And really, with these 10 warning signs, it's about are these things interfering with your everyday abilities to live your life? So you might forget the name of an object and be like, oh, the thingamajig.
Yeah.
But like it comes to you later what it was.
Right.
And that's not such a big deal. But for somebody who's experiencing Alzheimer's or another form of dementia, it really just kind of stops and they're not able to move forward. And they're less likely to be able to come up with some other way of explaining what that item is. Or the other thing we think about is like if I'm at the grocery store and I run into somebody who is like a parent of a kid on my daughter's soccer team,
Right.
and I'm going, what are their names? And it's more just because they're not in the place that I usually come across them. So it just kind of throws me a little bit, but it might be 3 o'clock in the morning and I think, oh, that's their name. That's not such an issue.
Okay.
We do know that the brain shrinks a little bit as we age, but when somebody has, say, advanced Alzheimer's disease, when you look at a brain scan, it has shrunk significantly. So on average, a brain weighs about 3 pounds, like a healthy brain. A brain that has advanced Alzheimer's disease weighs about 1 pound. So there's a significant amount of cell death that causes that loss in mass. So some of the warning signs to be looking out for is just memory loss that disrupts your day-to-day life. You know, we might forget an appointment here and there, and then we, oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot that.
Right.
Somebody with Alzheimer's or another type of dementia just won't remember it. It just like it never happened. And there is a part of our brain that is in charge of taking in new information and storing it as memory.
Right.
Well, that part of the brain starts to experience that loss, that cell death, and so it stops working. So new information comes in and it never gets stored as memory.
Got
and this
you.
is why a lot of that memory loss happens. But you might be able to talk to somebody about something that happened years ago and they could tell you about it in perfect detail because that part of the brain was working just fine when that got stored as memory. Another issue people experience is challenges in planning and solving problems. Those executive functions start to diminish. Familiar tasks become more and more challenging to complete. Sometimes even just being oriented to time and place, and you get extra confused about that. And you might even see as we go to our regular checkup, or even if you ever had like an emergency and the EMTs show up, they'll ask questions like, do you know today's date? Do you know where you are?
Yeah.
That's to check to see where is this person at with their cognition. Also, vision can change for people who have these brain changes happening, where visual images and spatial relationships start to change, where depth perception can be impacted. So that can be a big issue with safety, where, you know, if somebody's still driving and their depth perception's off, or even contrast of color, those kinds of things can be impacted. The one that you were talking about was problems with words and speaking and writing, and that is a sign, but it doesn't always mean that it's Alzheimer's or dementia. Again, if it's impacting your day-to-day life and it's out of character, it's becoming more of an issue, we are going to sometimes have that inability to find the right word at times, and that happens to everybody. But if it's more and more frequent and it's really interfering, that's something to discuss with a doctor. It doesn't always mean that it's Alzheimer's, though. It could be a ton of other things too.
Right. Yeah. And my mother is 80 years old, and that's really the only thing she has going on with her. So I'm sure it's fine.
Right. This one also scares people, the misplacing things and then losing the ability to retrace our steps. The second part is what matters. So we're all going to misplace things from time to time. You know, we have our regular spot. We put our keys on the counter or whatever it is. But sometimes we might get really busy. And so maybe we're running in the house with an armload of groceries and we're trying to get inside to answer the phone. And we, just throw something on the counter and go to the phone. And then later on, we're going, where are my keys? And then you can backtrack and say, okay, well, I know I got in the house, and you may find them like in the doorknob still.
Yeah.
You just rushed in. Somebody who has dementia is not going to be able to backtrack. So they may see, hey, my keys aren't on the counter where I usually put them. And then because they're trying to make sense of everything around them all the time, they may start accusing people of moving things on them or somebody stealing from them. They just don't have that ability. Again, that part of the brain isn't storing recent events as memory, so they can't backtrack. It's like it never happened. So to them, it only makes sense that if I always put my keys here and they're not there, somebody must have done something with them.
And that behavioral shift is usually a component of it as well, right? Like somebody who might be a shorter fuse than they've ever been in their life.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. And that's a challenge for the people around them. It's a challenge for themselves because, they're not doing it on purpose, but people around them are looking at them like, what is going on? Why are you being this way? And that's really difficult. The 3 other warning signs to look out for is just the person may have decreased or poor judgment, and that could be with finances to how you're dressed for the season, or, making appointments for an oil change in your car and never doing it.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because I've apparently had Alzheimer's since I was 15.
But again, if it's not out of character, this is just who you are.
That may not be appropriately better.
It's when we see a drastic shift. And I do think that is appropriate because a lot of people do think that. They say, oh my gosh, this is, something going on. But if it's how you've always been, that's not as big of a concern. I mean, maybe it is to your day-to-day life, but
it always was to everybody I know.
Yeah. So I think that's what's important for people to focus on. Another one that often will kind of go unseen or unchecked for a while is people start to withdraw from work or social activities. And I think we're just really good as a society at making excuses for people, like, oh, maybe they didn't feel well, or maybe they got mad at me for something I said, or they just don't want to come hang out. And so we don't think much about it until we look back and say, oh, all this adds up. They were withdrawing. They didn't want to come to the family barbecue, or, they stopped coming to the after work social hour or whatever. And it just doesn't really click right away that that's something that's happening, because we do just kind of chalk it up to, well, they just didn't feel like it. Sure. And sometimes people don't.
Sometimes being antisocial is the most social thing you can be.
Yeah. So I think it is something that, that often it's not noticed right off the bat as a big warning sign.
Gotcha.
And then you mentioned the other one already, but changes in mood or personality, where the person, there is a shift in their behaviors. It's something that's typical and normal age-related change might just be that, we have a very specific way that we might have been doing things all of our life. And if that gets disrupted, our routine is disrupted, we might get a little irritable. But for somebody who has Alzheimer's or dementia, it could be a big shift where they change quite a bit.
Right.
And it's very unlike their normal behavior.
So I think this is an excellent time right now. If somebody out there who's listening either has noticed these symptoms within themselves or within a loved one, where can they go? Who can they reach out to?
And I think the biggest thing first is to understand that it's not always Alzheimer's.
Right.
That is just, it could be. So I would say the best thing to do is start a conversation with your doctor. Okay. Go in for your checkup, talk about, I'm feeling a little concerned. Some of the things I think that people don't really think about, but this could be something that's like a thyroid disorder that just needs treatment. It could be depression. It could be an infection. It could be that you're on a new medication and it's interacting funny with your system, or even just an over-the-counter vitamin that, who knows. So it is important to find out and have the conversation. They'll probably start with lab work and see, is there anything that stands out? They may rule out some things, and then if the lab work comes back kind of normal, then from there they may say, okay, well, I think you should see a neurologist. And I do think this is an important part where people need to become their, a self-advocate, because sometimes it's, our healthcare system might be a little slow. And so people want answers right away, especially if you're feeling really off.
Right.
And just pushing a little bit, saying, I'd like to, get a referral to a neurologist, or I want to find out what's going on.
Right.
Just kind of push that forward. So there's not a lot of waiting. And there is oftentimes, even just to get in to see a neurologist, there's quite a wait list. So
like almost any doctor nowadays.
Yeah. So I think it's important to start early and find out what's happening there. And not to totally, digress to a different topic, but it goes with this. There is a new blood test that is not currently something that you can just walk into your doctor's office and it's part of your normal blood panel, like cholesterol and all of that.
Right.
But we are working toward that in our advocacy work. So
excellent.
The hope is that you would get tested along with everything else, and it would look at a range of biomarkers to see if you're within a normal range. And if that skews, off the chart a little bit, then they may say, it's time for you to go get checked out and figure out what's going on. And the beauty of that is that there are some new treatments available. This is like a very exciting time in research to be able to access treatments. And the earlier people access them, the better.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. But of course, everybody now who's been listening to the last 10 minutes of the episode are wondering what this has to do with corporate social responsibility, team building, so on and so forth. One of the ways we do want to tackle this to ask you about is what is happening today that corporations are doing, because this kind of disease doesn't just affect the sufferers. It affects everybody around them. So what kind of things are we seeing in the corporate workplace that are either happening for or against those people who are suffering under the burden of this disease?
Sure. Yeah. So a couple of things that are really exciting that we're working on as an organization to partner with the corporate world. So we know that 1 in 6 employees is a caregiver. And we know that caregiving stress costs the U.S. businesses $35 billion annually. That's just like a lot of calling out to take care of somebody else, or just, the stress involved,
right.
And not being able to focus on work, all of that. So we are working to bring education programs to the workplace. Like during your lunch break, you get on a Zoom, or we can come in person and do an education program for the employee workforce, just because it is really hard, especially for, say, like the sandwich generation to, after work, try to get their kids to soccer practice and take care of mom and dad. And, now I'm going to try to educate myself about how to be a better caregiver.
Right.
The time isn't there. So we're trying to go to where they're already at and offer education and resources so that they know about that. And hopefully it'll make their job as a caregiver a lighter lift, where they already know more about it to be able to do it better. The other thing that we're leaning into quite a bit is brain health at work. So
great.
We have this is like brand new, perfect timing that we're having this conversation. But if people go to our website, you can type in brain health at work, and our website is alz.org. And companies can actually take like a kind of a quiz to determine what is their score as an organization for supporting their employees. And then it'll also say, here are some things that you could work on. And they can sign on as kind of like and this is all free to do, by the way. So basically, the first step would be that they complete an organization assessment. Then they would access a tailored resource kit that this can help with templates and communication tips to share brain health and caregiver resources with their employees. The third step would be they can celebrate their recognition. So there's a whole toolkit on recognition to showcase the organization's commitment to creating a brain healthy workplace. And then the fourth step is just continuing that commitment. So they can retake the assessment year to year and track their progress and plan on different improvements that they might want to do to the employee brain health offerings and caregiver support.
And what are some things, just to wet people's whistle to make them want to go to the website, but can you give me an example of some like healthier habits that people can undergo and that corporations can help their employees start today?
Sure. Yeah. So we actually we love the number 10, where we have 10 healthy ways to love your brain.
Nice.
And we know also, just as a side note, that what's good for our hearts is good for our brains. So
Okay.
we did fund a research study called the US Pointer Study. And that was based on lifestyle interventions and how that can lower our risk for developing Alzheimer's or another type of dementia. So things like not smoking. I mean, none of this is groundbreaking, earth-shattering stuff that we already know. But
Sure.
what's amazing is that a lot of people, even though we know this, they don't always know to like take that next step and put it into action.
Right.
So we do have a whole education program that's called Building Brain Healthy Habits, and it comes with workbooks that people can use to create an individualized plan on eating better, working out, if they are smoking, to stop that. Looking at their numbers, like their blood pressure and their cardiovascular health and all of these things to help create just a healthier lifestyle. Things like wearing a helmet when we're doing active, risky sports like skiing or riding a bike or things like that.
Right.
And then also sleep hygiene, which I think probably everybody knows.
Yep. Everyone's heard of it and no one does it right.
Right. Like stop the doom scrolling before bed. And, we have to have that habit. And it is said that if we try to keep consistent and wake up and go to bed at the same time each day, that is really good for our brains. Our brains love consistency. It loves structure. So giving it that. Another huge one is creating new neural pathways in our brains by learning new things, doing things just slightly outside our comfort zone. So even though this sounds a little weird, but like switch your hand that you hold your toothbrush in and brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand every once in a while. It sounds so easy, but you do have to kind of think when you're doing it. You're like, oh, okay, this is weird. They say, take a different way home from work every once in a while when you're driving, because how often do we drive scary, but how often do we drive and we just get there and we like, I don't remember.
Yeah. How long have I been in the car now? Yeah.
We're autopilot. And so when we have to think, it helps.
Okay.
But also picking up things that are very challenging. So maybe you've always wanted to learn to play some musical instrument or learn a new language or cook something different that you aren't usually used to doing. That kind of stuff really helps. And, trying to stay socially engaged is another huge one too. The social isolation.
Yeah.
Like we saw, and I can't remember the exact percentage, but there was an increase in cases of Alzheimer's and dementia during COVID because of that social isolation. And maybe it was already happening. Those changes were happening in the brain, but it just was
it's almost too perfect how well it all interlocked. Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, when you're talking about social isolation, like you were saying yourself, you're talking about depression. You're talking about people who are suffering from PTSD. This is a major reason why these people just lock themselves away. They just feel safer not being out there. But as you say, you got to be out there because we're a social species. We always have been. That's amazing stuff. I can't tell you how much I'm really enjoying this conversation. But let's talk about the work-based areas of it again. What are some ways that managers and those C-suite people who are going to be listening to this can best support their people who are suffering now, besides just giving them the test to take home or, one practice that they can start in their day?
Sure. Yeah, I think, having some sort of outlet, like a support type of thing where the employee base feels comfortable going to, whether it's their manager or an HR person, to be able to tap into resources that are available to them. We have a lot of support groups that we offer. Some organizations may even want to start one at work. Employee resource groups are great. So we have one at my workplace that's for like new parents. So it could even be a support group for people that are caregivers as well, to maybe their parents or to somebody at home that they're caring for. I think, just making it accessible and talking about it is the first thing, where so many people don't want to share. And unfortunately, there is still slightly a stigma attached to this disease. It is slowly going away. I think, years and years ago, people didn't talk about cancer. They would,
Right.
whisper it.
And people still don't want to talk about mental health anyway.
Right.
That's only now becoming a topic of conversation people need to take seriously.
And it's amazing how many people it does impact. That why aren't we talking about it? Because
exactly right.
So many people talk about so many people are impacted by it. And just knowing you could talk to somebody else that maybe has walked in your shoes or understood and has some, kind words or even resources to share is an important tool. So I think just employers can certainly help by getting that conversation started and then pointing them in the right direction for where they should connect. And the Alzheimer's Association is one organization that can certainly help with a lot of support. I think also in terms of helping to get brain health part of just a regular day-to-day conversation, and even starting, different groups where people could get involved. So it might be hey, let's have a lunchtime walking club, or we're going to do healthy brain health recipe swap. Lots of different things that can get people excited about making these changes in their life, because, good working brains are good employees.
So my little Sudoku books are actually helping me?
They do. And people do ask that. Just don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Sure.
So
right.
I tell people your crossword, your Sudoku, those are great. But if that's all you did, it's almost like if I only lifted weights with my left arm would be in great shape, but the rest of me needs help. So you want to do the Sudoku, you want to, do that lifting, but you also want to explore lots of other things. Okay. The more varied our interests, the better.
Great. And you want to try to include physical as well as mental. Yes?
Yes, for sure.
Fabulous.
Anything that gets our heart rate up is helpful. Good cardiovascular health is good for our brains. So every, beat of the heart, a certain percentage, and it's a good percentage. I can't think of the amount right off the top of my head, but it's a good percentage of blood that goes to our brains. Yeah. So we want to make sure that's not blocked and that it's, healthy and it's filled with lots of rich nutrients that are going to fuel our brains.
Okay. And talking about those people who right now might be listening, who have somebody who's suffering and they are their primary caregiver, because I'm so certain nowadays there are those people whose a family member is suffering and they don't have the financial, capabilities of bringing in an outside resource. Mm-hmm. How can we best start helping them? Not only understanding what it is that's happening, but even being able to communicate on a basic level with someone who is actually suffering.
Yeah. So I think education is key for any caregiver. There are certain programs that we offer. One of them is about communication, because communication does change for the person living with the disease. So in how they're able to make their needs known, as well as how they take in information and process that. So as a caregiver, or really anybody that's interacting with this person, we do need to know, what can we change? What can we do differently in our approach when we communicate with this person? One thing I'd say is slow things down. We don't have to have everything, peppered at them all at once. So it might be that we're asking them a question, give them time to answer that. Sometimes it's an awkward amount of time. We're did they get that? Or but it does take a little bit of time for them to process the information and then come up with what they want to say. Also making sure that there's less background noise competing with the conversation. That can be very distracting and really difficult for the individual with dementia to be able to focus on the conversation. So I think, that's really a huge building block is the communication piece. We also have a program about what behaviors are sort of common with Alzheimer's and dementia and what to be looking out for. Wandering can become an issue where somebody could wander away from their home, and that's a big safety issue. So what are some things that you could do at your house to give you a little peace of mind that that this person's safe and they're not going to walk out the door in the middle of the night.
Right.
So we have a lot of tips for people. I will say this is a very individualized disease. There are some common factors, but if you've met one person with Alzheimer's, you've truly just met one person with Alzheimer's because of the history of who they are and what makes them up, that their memories and their experiences in life. All of that comes into play as to how this impacts them and how they may react to certain situations. Talking with one of our helpline consultants is really important to kind of walk through, here's what we're going through, here's how it's impacting us, and what kind of tips do you have for us, and we can work with people on that.
Fantastic. Jen, thank you so much. I do want to actually, so anybody out there hearing this can know, how can a corporation, not just an individual, get involved with your Alzheimer's Association? Is it volunteering,
Sure.
partnerships? Can they bring you in, or, like you said yourself, just be on a Zoom call and talk about it? What can they do to do more for you and have you do more for them?
Sure. Yeah. So there's a ton of opportunities for both individuals and for corporations to get involved. One, I would say the best thing is to host an education program. They're free. We come to you, or we can do it via Zoom, whatever works best for the environment that you're working in. And that is a great tool for people just to either. We have more general audience programs like the Know the 10 Warning Signs and building brain healthy habits and understanding Alzheimer's and dementia. And then we have some that are very specific to caregivers that are, about the communication and behaviors. And we have a whole series that's called Empowering the Caregiver, which is fantastic for people to really have everything they need to know about what it is to be a caregiver. And then also, people, individuals, and businesses as well could get involved with our Walk to End Alzheimer's, either as a walk sponsor. They can create a walk team. They can volunteer on the day of to help out, or they can be on the planning committee. There's so many opportunities there. And then we also have something called Do What You Love to End Alzheimer's, which really is whatever people want it to be. People do kind of, oh my gosh, we have people that hike the 48 peaks in New Hampshire. We have people that do golf tournaments and barbecues, and I do a run from sunrise to sunset. Nice. We have kids that do lemonade stands. It's like whatever people want to do, and it's just a great way for people to raise awareness and funds. And the funds go toward helping us to do what we do for providing support services at no cost to families. It also helps to fund the research, which we do a lot for funding research out in the world to move this mission forward, which is a world without Alzheimer's.
Fantastic. My team out there, please give a big round of applause to Jen Hoadley. Jen, thank you so much. This is amazing. I cannot tell you how excited I was when I heard you were coming on, just to find out more about this rather elusive, unless you really go digging for it, topic. And one more time, can we give that website?
Yeah, so the website is alz.org. Okay. And I want to also plug the helpline. It's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can call it 3:30 in the morning, and a person will answer. Nice. And be available to walk through whatever you're going through. And that number is 800-272-3900. It's nationwide. So you could be a long distance caregiver and you want to know about resources across the country. The database will pull all of that up for you, and it's getting you information and referrals to the various resources out there. So if somebody's looking for an elder law attorney or a home care agency, or you name it, whatever people might need in terms of helping to care for somebody or get support, they can access information about support groups around around them. They can get a care consultation. They can learn more about our trial match program, which goes into the research. They can actually take part in research trials that
Excellent.
are happening. They look for people that are healthy, have no history, or people that are experiencing the disease. They look for everybody and anybody. So it's a great way to learn more about the research that's happening. And you can either call the helpline at 800-272-3900 or go on the website at alz.org and learn more about that.
So you heard it here first, team. Go on out there, find some way to volunteer. Let's start helping these people. Jen, did you have fun being here today?
I absolutely did. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You were absolutely amazing. I hope you will always remember this as something very positive, even though I'm going to force you to play a game now because it's time for my speed round.
Okay, I'll do what I can.
So just so you remember, I did tell you about this before we came on the air, but I want to refresh everybody's memory, that this is just 60 seconds of completely innocuous questions. During that time, you can just answer however you like. The objective is try to get quick, short, fast answers. If you have, if you want to be challenged, we have reached 16 questions asked and answered in one 60-second sitting. So we're trying to see if we can beat it. Don't feel like you have to. It's fine either way.
No pressure.
Exactly. All right. So when you start hearing music, I will ask the first question. Are you ready?
I guess so.
Let's have some fun. What's your name?
Jen.
How many kids do you have?
2.
Which one's your favorite?
Neither.
Do you have any pets?
Yes.
If you could ask your pet a question and get an answer, what would it be?
Woof.
No, what was the question?
I'm speaking his language. Woof.
Okay. Favorite children's book?
Ooh, Pokey Little Puppy.
Pancakes or waffles?
Pancakes.
Best career advice you ever received?
Don't sweat the small stuff.
If you could work anywhere remotely in the world, where would you work?
Switzerland?
What job would you be terrible at?
Oh, gosh, a teacher?
Favorite vacation?
Disney.
Guilty pleasure TV show?
The Pit?
How do you stay creative?
I run.
15.
Okay.
15. That is amazing. That is really well done. Because there were a couple thinkers in there. There were a couple you had to pause.
There were, and some of them I just spewed an answer and I don't even know.
That's how you win. That's all it is. Jen.
What came to mind?
Thank you again. I look forward to hearing more from you, especially about this really important topic. And actually, I think, because I have a lot of free time, unfortunately, in this economy. I'm getting
then you can come and be a volunteer with
That's
us.
what I'm thinking. Yeah, you might hear from me soon. I think I might actually be able to spend some time to come in and volunteer. And I hope everybody who's listening out there takes the time and does the same. Jen Hoadley, thank you so much.
Thank you.